3, 2, 1, go. Well, good morning, Powermetrix Nation. How are y'all doing this morning? I missed y'all. I got me out of my routine. It seems like it's been forever since I talked with y'all. We got a lot to talk about this morning. Some of it even work stuff. We got a lot of other stuff to talk about. And you know, I realized I didn't wait long enough with JP. Him, you know, with his network experience, I would have to come here a lot later than that to throw you at all. That didn't even quiver the needle. I was way too early. I should wait till like a minute. Yeah. I don't even think that would do it. Okay. So, gauntlet drop. I'm going to have to come up with some kind of challenge accepted.
I can always just push play. You ain't got to be here to show the video.
Wow. Hold on a minute. Ow. Oh, man. That blooded me up a little bit. Now I see exactly where I lay in the pecking order right here. Yeah, I really am the dancing clown. That's fine. Okay. We just came off of... want to get that out of the way. Auburn Meter School. We had Glems, and then we have the Auburn Meter School. Just came right after. There were just under 400 folks at Auburn last week, including the vendors and everything. Suzanne and Ron and them did an awesome job because it, you know, especially with everything being in such flux and everything. So they did a great job there. We had some awesome things happen there, both. A lot of great things work, a lot of great things on the other side of the stuff that you know I talk about on here. So that's awesome. And so I'm going to start out talking about that other stuff. You know, we talk about, you know, being part of the family, the Powermetrix family, and we have people that we've known for many, many years, and then some that we have gotten to know through them, and then now we've gotten to know them. And it's like a giant family reunion when you go to these things, and you get to see folks you haven't seen in a while. And we have some folks that we've been praying for. We have Brennan with Alabama Power had an incredible story of God working in his family's life. You have somebody that just all of a sudden gets a liver transplant only because they happen to be there that day, and so they jump to the head of the list. And so, we're obviously we continue to pray for recovery for Brennan's dad, and then. We have another friend of the Powermetrix family, and that's George's mom. And his mom's going through some things. It's, again, medically, and we're praying for her for recovery and for the doctors. And my mom had a pacemaker changed today, and I mean, it's on and on and on with all this stuff. And then, of course, COVID, everything else. But it's just incredible to me to see who people are turning to in these times, right? And it talks about that in the Bible. I mean... So when it seems like there are no answers, we know there is one answer, right? We know who we can go to. So it's just incredible to think that we can go to the creator of the entire universe, who's in control of everything, and we can offer up our requests to him. But more importantly, and this is the hardest part, is just allowing him to be in control and live with whatever it is that he decides and what he does, and just to be within his will. If it's in his will, it's good. So we've been doing a lot of praying lately, a lot of things going on. Also at Auburn, they used this very bench right here was used to teach the hands-on classes right here. So that was very cool. And we had some requests coming up. I'll talk about that here in a minute for some webinars that we're going to do, which that's great when people come up and request things. Had a lot of input in on the webinars, and people continuing to come up and talk to us about the webinars, and that's it's very gratifying for me, and more importantly, the guys that do all the work behind the scenes, which are Chris and JP. So I'm loving all that. So yeah, we've got a lot of things going on right now. So I'm going to start out with prayer, and going to pray for the folks I just mentioned, and I have in my life, and that I've also heard about out there. So let's start out that way. All right, we're going to start out with prayer, and then we'll get rolling. Precious Heavenly Father. Thank you so much for this time today. Thank you for safe travel for all the people that did all that traveling with these last 2 meter schools the last 2 weeks. Everybody making it home safe and sound to their families. Father, it's so important for us to, you start out in your Bible with you doing work, creating this incredible universe. And so we know work is important, but at the end of the day, getting people home to their families, the most people getting home whole to their families is what we endeavor to do in all this training, Lord. So anything we can say or anything that might be brought up that would keep someone from getting in trouble or remind them of something they needed to do in the future out there in the field, please let that happen today. And Father, we lift up this Father, lift up George's mother, lift up my mom, and there are a lot of others out there, and you know, Lord, that have been brought to me and talked about. And Father, we just, in the midst of all this, between the COVID and everything else, it's hard not to get caught up in all the medical stuff going on, but we know in the end that you're in control, Lord. So thank you so much for this day. Thank you so much for what we might learn today. And most importantly, thank you so much for what your Son did. If Jesus hadn't died on that cross, I couldn't even pray right now. So all of these things I ask and I say according to the will of the one who paid it all, my brother, Jesus Christ. Amen. All right. So we're going to make a slight adjustment to the schedule. I mentioned a request earlier, and I got requests at Glem's up there in Kalamazoo and also at Auburn last week. You'll see there on the 21st, I was asked if we might redo the load boost / benchtop video because that was very early on and I was even more clumsy and messed up than I am now. So they said you couldn't see all the connections really well on that, so they asked me if we would redo that one. So we are going to be redoing on September 21st the load boost benchtop test, okay? Today we're going to start, this is a great training opportunity at this site. A lot of things came into play here. So we're going to take our time. It's a series. So today and for the next 2 weeks, that's what we'll be working on. And now, we also have something kind of exciting for September 14th. And it is a new product launch that we will be coming out with on September 14th. So we will have a big time presentation on that. We're pretty excited about it. A few people have heard about it now after Auburn, but September 14th will be when we will actually launch it and introduce it on the webinars. So be ready for that. And then the 21st, we will do that, the redo of the load boost. So today we are going to do a site inspection, this 6S site. We're going to do a meter assessment, look at services, service types, the meter, make sure everything matches up on that, and then we'll go ahead and get the equipment set up, okay? One of the first things, just to give you a little preview of what we're dealing with here, and it's kind of weird for me. The first site that we started filming on, but there was more than one meter at this site. So I'm going back in time now to the very first one. And it's a little embarrassing because I can see I got at least a tiny bit better as we went along. So I'm really bumble on this one as JP laughs in the background. So give me a little, give me a little leeway on that. But what this is we're at this site where they have been doing all the grinding and everything and cutting and everything on the granite that you saw earlier on this site. There was a 9S for that, right? Now this is for the offices over there, and it's a 6S. It does not have much load on it at all. As a matter of fact, when we were there, you didn't even see any lights on or anything up there in the offices, okay? But this is the offices. It is a 6S, and you'll see us vet all that out here in a minute. But you had the 9S that was over there feeding the manufacturing part of the business. We've already done that site, overhead 9S. Now this is the 6S that handles the offices and everything, okay? So just to give you context of what we're dealing with here. So we'll stop a few times in here and I'll talk a little bit, but so you know that's what we're getting into here. So we'll go ahead and let JP start rolling it. Morning, everybody. I'm here this morning out at a site here at a customer site. You can see behind us the utility pole with the meter and the CTs, and you can also see transformers and all that. So we got a metered site here that we're going to be testing. During this week, I'm going to be working with Brylan Bates.
How you doing, guys?
And so Brylan and I are going to be out here working. He's the expert, so he's going to be handling all the heavy lifting, and I'm just going to be running my gums like always. But we're out here, we're pretty excited about this. So what we want to do first is, when you walk up to a site like this, Brylan and the guys that go out there and do testing for us, and he's got a ton of experience, what they do is they walk up and they first do an assessment. Because you got to think about this. The meter techs are the ones, they're going to see an issue, and typically they'll report it to the linemen, because the linemen are just, they're doing what they normally do. They're putting up new construction or fixing things, but it's reported by the meter techs, okay? So when you come to a site, instead of just running up there testing, there should be an assessment that you do when you get there.
And that's what Brylan and I are going to do first. We're going to take a look at, we're going to look at all the things on this pole, make sure they coordinate and work together well, but also look for issues we might need to report back to those linemen so they can come out here and check it out, okay? So we're going to turn right now, we're going to check out this pole behind us, and we're going to do an assessment of it from top to bottom, okay? So I don't know about you, Brylan, but I mean, you can really start at bottom or top. What do you normally do? Top, bottom, bottom, top?
As soon as I get out of the truck, I'll start looking at the top. I'll look
right.
at the bank. What kind of bank do we have?
That's right.
And I just go down from there, make sure everything looks good up there.
From previous videos you've seen, Brylan looks up at the top. And what did he see when he looks up there? Let's see, if we go a little bit, maybe just a tad farther and see the transformers up there at the top again, or just barely back, either way. Looky there, boom. Thank you, sir. So if you remember from the very first one of these that we showed, we were told what the site was, but then when we showed up, it wasn't what they told us, and we knew that by looking up at the top of the pole immediately and telling what type of service it was. So if you remember that original one we were told, they told us, go out there, you got a 4-wire Y up there. And when we got there, what did we see at the top of the pole? All 3 of the transformers here weren't the same size. I had one larger transformer and 2 smaller ones. So remember, if you remember that very first one, we started thinking, that doesn't look like a Y, it looks more like a delta. So it looks more like a delta. So I'm sitting there going, So when we look at this one and we see 3 transformers the same size, we're thinking Y, which is what Brylan thought when he looked up at the top of the pole. So I mean, when you first walk up, there are things you can determine just by a glance up at the pole, just merely looking at the transformers. You can start assessing this site and start determining what's what here. So looking up at the top there, I'm thinking Y. Thanks, JP.
Transformers up there, they've got a little bit of rust on them.
That's right.
You know, I just look at that. Is that something you want to port to the lineman, or look at your lightning resistors up there and just your basic stuff. Just analyze it and go down from there. And
you work with a lot of different utilities, so some folks would say, yeah, please let us know if there's some rust on that transformer.
Right.
And some might say,
yes,
unless it's leaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But then also when you look up there, you brought up another important thing. You look at your lightning arrestors. Look, if anything, all of a sudden you might see one hanging open. It's been sprung, right?
And so just to what we just said on there, I'm out of practice. It's been a whole 2 weeks.
Been a while.
And when you got a mind like mine, that's like 2 months to everybody else. Okay, so not only the assessment of, you can look at, say, okay, I'm getting an idea what the service might be. We brought up that rust and everything. Everyone's going to be different on what they want you to report. I would say, this is just me, but generally, if you see that on the bottom, if you see any of that deep pitting, and you can see the difference between deep pitting and just that on the outside right there, if you see that, I think you pretty much have to report that. Once again, it's utility by utility, but I would think you'd want to definitely see any kind of deep pitting on the bottom side of this. A lot of times you'll see it right there on that seam right there, but if you see any kind of deep pitting on there, I definitely would. The outside rust right there, maybe yay or nay. That's totally up to the utility whether they want you to know, but deep pitting underneath here for sure.
So you might need to report that to them. So you kind of start at the top up there, and when you look at the top up there, tell me what you're seeing.
Well, we got a 3-phase bank right here, so we know it's going to be we got a Y right here. This meter, it's going to be a 6S. And then your CTs over here, you look at those. These CTs, they can either be, they're multi-tap, they can be 200s or 400s.
That's right. I think that was key to what you said right there, is when you're looking up there and you're seeing those 3 transformers, when you said it was a Y. That's a big deal to us,
yeah,
right? So that is a Y configuration for us. So now you're already thinking, I'm testing a Y configuration, a Y site. So you're kind of cataloging all these things as you go along, right? So you're saying, okay, I know I got a Y site by those 3 transformers up there. And I'm seeing that I've got something coming off all 3 of those transformers. One thing some folks like to look at too is if you take a look where the conduit comes up out of my meter can right here at the top, it's how those wires are coming out of the top. Like in a lot of areas where you've got a lot of winds and storms and areas like that, you would like to have them some tied together, maybe, right? So they're not flopping around as much and they may not get damaged as easily. So if you look up there, those could be tied together a little bit better, probably, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Another
okay.
thing, look at that weather head up there. Some sites I've been to, they don't even have a weatherhead. That leaves objects can come down through there and come into the meter can. Birds build nests down in there, bees, whatnot. You know, you've got rainwater that comes down into there.
That's a great point right there. So I hope y'all heard that. I mean, if you find stuff down in the bottom of that can, it can get behind the test switch, it can get up in the stuff and cause us major problems. Without a weatherhead, it'd be a lot easier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, good point right there. Okay, so looking up at the top, you've said, okay, it's a Y. I've got my 3 transformers up there, so it's going to be a Y. I can see that I would like to have those wires a little bit better right there at the top coming out of there, but I do have a weatherhead, so I'm liking that. As you said, you pointed out it could be a multi-tap on there, but I got my, looks like my CTs are stacked right there on that left side, right? Okay, so I got my CTs stacked. And then also, do you check out the pole, kind of the condition of the pole?
Yeah, I look at the pole, you know, I look down at the base of the pole where it's in the ground, you know, if, say you're down south somewhere where they have a lot of hurricanes and stuff, the soil's more sandy and everything, you know, that pole can lean, you know, and that'll leave the hole open up, you know, and that pole, it's just sitting in there, you know. You want to report that so they can come out here and fix it.
That's exactly right. You'll even see it sometimes where it's starting to eat away at the bottom of that pole.
Yeah.
Problem.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you definitely want to report that. So that's another good point. So we'll walk up here and do a little bit closer examination. I too have run across them before where you can just take the knuckle on that ground and hit it with your foot and it just spins. So you want to check your ground out, right?
Oh yeah.
So looking here, it looks like I've got a good ground. Going down the side of the pole, you can see my ground wire going right up the pole right there. It looks like I'm okay there. I guess you could just kind of check it, make sure it's a good connection right there, right?
Right.
Throw on my gloves here real quick, and we'll just get up here.
And the meter can right there also, make sure it's mounted good to the pole. It's not loose or anything like that.
That's another good point. You want to make sure that this meter can's on there pretty good. And that's nice and solid. So yeah, the meter can's on there nice and solid. Looks like we've got a good connection right here at our ground. That looks good and tight. I would check that. Like I said, there's been times where I've seen it where that knuckle will just spin, and you know that's not good. And one of the reasons why it's important for this is because when you get ready to test one of these sites, when you use any equipment, and we're doing this for training, folks, this isn't selling, right? So when you're using it, I know for our equipment, if you don't have a good ground path and that knuckle's not good on there, it'll give you problems, won't it?
Oh yeah.
Because what it'll do is it'll throw out, remember, the equipment throws out a little power and it wants to see the power coming back, and it says, I want to make sure I don't have a loose connection. And if you do have a really loose connection on that, you can get that dreaded waveform generator error. You're out there trying to get something tested and you're going to widen it going. It's because you might have a really bad ground. If you're connected to that ground and you're connected separate ground and neutral, it's not going to like what it sees, right? So it's going to come back and tell you waveform generator error, and so you got to tighten something up, or you might move those connections, but that'll also give you an indication there might be a problem. But if you do a good site inspection, you'll pick that up on the front end. You don't have to worry about it once you go into the test. Okay?
And I see more of the looseness on the earth ground, where expansion, contraction of that copper,
you know, you
cause
need to look
but
at
on
that
the earth
and
ground, you'll see sometimes
are they
it'll be
corroded, and you know, do they need to be cleaned? Do they need to be replaced and everything like that? And we'll get into that when we open it up, you know, and start looking at it.
Absolutely. I hope y'all caught that. It's a huge thing Brylan just said. I mean, all this obviously, but now we're really getting in the meat of what we do, right? We're getting up in that meter can. You know, we tend to concentrate meter can, and the CTs is where we do most of our work. We've done a great general inspection of the pole so that we can report anything to the lineman if we need to. But when you actually crack in there and get in there, that switch is critical to us, right? That's where we make all our connections and do our testing. So when we crack into this thing, Brylan brought up another great point. We're going to definitely want to look at that test switch really carefully, all right? So we'll go ahead and crack into this thing and take a look in the inside of it and do an inspection of the meter can itself, okay? But Brylan, I'm kind of skipping a spot on it because when you walk up here, we get a lot of information off of this, right? Off of this meter right here. So as Brylan pointed out, we have got a we've got a Y up there. We know that, but what is it? Is it 12208 or is it 277 volt? For a Y system, those are going to be the two voltage configurations we're going to typically have. It's going to be a 12208, 277 480 volt, right?
Yes.
So if you look, how can you determine that, Brylan?
You can look over here on the side. It's going to show you 120, and then it also gives you a Y. If this site was a delta and you weren't able to tell from up the pole, it'll have the delta symbol right there, right above the Y, instead of the Y being right there. Perfect.
So sometimes you're lucky enough, you walk up there, but and you can see it's still on the transformers. But typically the transformers, after a short amount of time, you won't be able to read anything off the transformer. So you go to the meter, and said that perfectly, and you're going to look over in the corner, and he saw the Y, which coincides with what he ascertained from looking at the top. But then we want to know, is it 120, 208, 277, 480 volt? And you can see on the screen right here, the display, it was 120 and it was a Y. So I know I've got a 120, 208.
Okay, so we've talked about this before off the face of the meter, so I'm just going to talk about it really quickly. You can see the Y there on the screen as we just talked about, Y there, but it's showing an actual Y on the screen, so we know that's what we've got there. We've talked about the auto ranging, so this is 120 to 480 volt. So we've talked about that before, that this meter can operate at any of those voltages there. We see the test amps is 2.5. Remember, if you're going to do that full load, light load power factor test, or as we call the phantom load test, or the ANSI test, whatever you want to call it, that then designates, according to ANSI, that your full load is 2.5 amps. Then you'll go, of course, the light load 0.25, and our power factor is always 0.5, a really bad power factor, which would be indicative of a large angle. So that gives us our starting point for our phantom load test. This tells it it's auto ranging on the voltages here. This tells us it's a class 20 meter, which is this meter is rated for 20 amps. Just the same that test switch and everything else inside that cabinet's rated for. Okay, and we've talked about that before, about how it's all 20 amps down here at the bottom down here. Okay, and just to get a little bit ahead and think a little bit, that stuff is only going to be a rating factor of 4, right? Because if you think about it, everything is 5 amps on the secondary side with all the CTs. 200 to 5, 400 to 5, 800 to 5. So they always step down to 5 amps max on the secondary side, but not when you have what? When you have these extended range, right? So now if I have, and rating factor, so if I have a rating factor now of 4, then actually I can put that same, I'll just use the example of 200 to 5, I can put that 200 to 5 in a what? 800 amp application. When I do, if I have 800 amps on the secondary side, I would have 4 times 5 on the secondary, I'd have 20 amps on the secondary side. That's why we won't ever see it go up to 5, because it would put more than 20 amps on this and that switch down there, okay? So they're rated 20 amps, so that's why you're only going to be able to go 4 times more on the secondary side to get to the 20 amps, okay? So we see that. Here it tells me my K sub H is 1.8. That means that according to this, every time this meter sees 1.8 watts, it pulses. Okay, so that tells us that, and then it tells us, of course, at 60 hertz right here. So a lot of information just off the face of this thing before we even get rolling, okay? Thanks, JP.
2208 site here, okay? And then what else can we get off of this, Brian? What kind of, you'd said it earlier, this is a 6S, right?
Yes.
So we saw that it was a 6S meter up here in the upper left side over here. We saw it was a 6S, right? So we know it's a 6S meter, right? And we know we're 120, 208, a Y configuration, okay? Before we crack into it, all right? And if you want to, go ahead and crack in there, big boy. So we cut our seal off, use our side cutters to open her up every time. Tell me what you're seeing.
Okay, I don't want to go through this too quickly, because this one, we've kind of alluded to. It's funny since I already know what we're running into here. Notice when we took that cover off, all the stuff that was up on top of that cover. When we first pulled that cover out of there, and then also look inside of here and really do an examination of what's going on inside here, okay?
These switches, I mean, they're not in the best condition. They've got a little bit of corrosion on them. You can see down through there. And then in the back there, I mean, there's grass, rocks, and different stuff back in there. I'm not sure how that managed to get in there, but it's definitely back there across the top up there, the rocks.
Sure is, isn't there?
Yeah, you see that?
There's a rock, there's grass across the top. Hold on a minute. And I believe I see a wad of ants. Can you see that? Can you get that on there, JP? You see that wad right there, that big wad down in there, that wad of ants down in there, and I got a...
Okay, so we literally had wad of ants, grass and a rock You can see all this stuff back behind that test switch that we found in here. Mystery, weatherhead on top of that little conduit. How does all that stuff get down in there? We were all scratching our heads about this, but you can already see that this is not at all what we wanted. The test switch is not in great shape either. Look at all the pitting and corrosion on that test switch. This is also one of those old style test switches. You can see it's real hard to grab onto the end of it. It's just got that big thick chunk of metal on the end to try and get either an alligator clip or trying to get an easy hook or anything on any of this stuff too. Those old style test switches were not made for us testers to get out there and work.
A lot of ants, looks like over here, and we know how the ants like, it's the vibration, that little tiny vibration in the electricity attracts insects. You got to watch that. Wasps, ants, stuff like that. So you can see they've balled up and wadded on there. They've balled up and wadded right there. And then as Brylan pointed out, we even got a rock and some grass on the backside, and I'm with Brylan. I don't know how in the world they got past the weatherhead and got down in there. All of that is critical and important to us because it's not giving us a great feeling on the test switch right now and how that test switch is in there, all right? So we need to keep that in mind when we get ready to run our test. If we have an issue, that may be one of the problems, okay? So what else you look for? I guess wires, you would look at how the wires are connected, or what do you look at?
I just look at the wires, you know, make sure sometimes these wires can get loose over time. You know, if you're not getting a good reading or something, you just want to check on those, make sure they're in there good, they're tightened down the way they should be.
That's right.
And the wires, make sure the insulation, still on that wire right there, I mean the insulation, it's gone on it.
It's bare right there.
Yeah.
It or not, but here we've actually got the wires skint back here, and you can see bare copper over here on one of the voltages over here. All right.
Yeah.
Nice catch right there. I'm on this other side. Didn't even see that.
That's voltage right there.
Nice. That's voltage right there. So I've actually got a skinned wire on my voltage. I got rock and grass in the backside. I got ants up in there. So I'm already thinking, yeah, we probably could have some issues testing this side. Okay. All right. So now we'll go ahead and connect everything up and see what we got. In this case, we are using a 7 series. It's a 7332, which means it has a true 3-phase voltage source, has a 20 amp current source. So, so we're going to make our connections. Did you see what he's doing right there? Where he kind of moves his alligator clip on there a little bit? You know you're going to get corrosion and buildup.
Cleans it off right there. That way it'll get a better connection.
Nice. We talk about this all the time. We talk about making that neutral connection first. You notice that's what Brylan did. He made the neutral connection first. And he is stacking his, and we've talked about this in the webinars, he's stacking his auxiliary power onto that neutral connection there. So that's why he stacked those 2 whites, because we're getting our power at the site right here.
Now, notice the way that Brylan did this, and we've talked about this previously on here. We've talked about coining those surfaces, all right? We talked about taking the alligator clips for the voltages and putting them over on the blades and just working them back and forth a little bit to coin them, okay? You'll see here in a minute, I thought this was funny. I told JP, when I was watching this again, Brylan started to put his, we're always talking about taking the handle and putting it to the right? That way you don't knock the handle off. At first when he puts it on, you'll see, and he catches himself and puts it over the other way. I started to go, wait a minute, Brylan's putting it on the wrong way. So there are some ways that we've started talking about putting those alligator clips on there, right? Turn the handle to the right to where I don't have my long return blade knocking off when I'm going to put my duck bills in, knocking off my voltage alligator clip, all right? If I put it to the right, lean it down just a tad and then work it, all right? Just work it a little bit, right? If we can get that coin into that surface, then that's when we can get through that corrosion and cut through it. And you can see he just did that. Now, he's putting his ground and neutral first, absolutely. You have a ground and a neutral with the 7 series that you don't with the 3 series. We use both in these webinars, right? In this one, notice he went ground first and then the neutral. Now, I'm fine with that. I like to put them at the same point a lot of the time. But since he got on there really good with it and coined the surfaces, I'm okay with that. Notice what he does here, though, that I like is he goes in and puts his, well, remember, with if you're using a piece of equipment where you're gaining power from the site, you're going to have an auxiliary power cable, or somehow you're going to have to hook up auxiliary power to the test kit as well. And in this case, with ours, we're getting that through an additional cable right here. He's putting that on there first, then he's just stacking his A phase, and he's inserting that in there and stacking his A phase, so he's picking up his A phase. He's using A phase as potential to run the test kit, to power up the battery through the whole thing. And also when you start doing any kind of phantom load tests and you're going to be producing current, you want to also be able to pull up the, don't go total battery, you want to also pick up power at the site. So for anybody's equipment, that they'll ask you to make that connection and just pick up potential there at the site. And it's almost always done through the test switch. So right here at the test switch, that is what he's doing. He has stacked right here his neutral on that extra cable for power, and this is his other hot. These are the two extra ones. This is a hot one right here. He's going to take his red normal voltage cable and insert in there. So his normal voltage right here, normal neutral A phase, normal A phase is about to go in here. So his normal A phase and neutral connections are here, but he's added this black one and another white one here to pick up the power for the test kit. Okay? Thanks, JP.
So he's stacking his A phase and his aux power hot. See how he did that? I got a question for you, Brylan. Is there a particular way you like to turn those alligator clips when you're putting them in the way you're putting them on those blades?
The way I put them in like that, I had this one over here, and when you open this test switch right here, the top of this, it'll run into the duck or the alligator clip right there, and it won't be able to open all the way. So you flip it this way, and it gives enough room for the test switch to slide right by it, and you can go ahead and insert your current.
It's all these little field tips that help you not only be more efficient in time, but you're sitting there trying to do it, all of a sudden you pull the dadgum thing off. You don't want to do that, especially in a test, but you may as well go ahead and get them the right way. So they're small things, but they do help you over the long run, right? Notice he always opens those shunt blades up first before he puts his duck bills in. See, now if that handle was in the way on that blue right there, he'd grab on it. Nice. Okay. So you can see what we did there. You notice those little things? That's people who've done a lot of testing, all right? So that little, see, man, if you got a chance to do it, clean it off, right? Scour it just a little bit so you make a nice good connection. There's going to be corrosion. You know, we're in a part of the country you get a lot of corrosion, so that's what he's doing. He's just working those duck bills just a little bit in there so he can help with the corrosion aspect of it, all right? Always opened his shunts first. That was perfect. Then he went in and he worked them a little bit and got them in good. Notice he even worked that the voltage on his alligator clips. He works that as well, all right, just to make a good connection, just like he did over here, all right? Okay?
Another thing on this meter right here, this Landis gear, you need to pull the power off of it and put it back in. That way you can get your pulses to run your tests.
Uh-huh. I learned this the hard way. The way these Landis gear meters are, the way that they've programmed them, you can read the manuals and stuff. Once you power them up, they emit pulses over a certain time. I don't remember what it is now, and then they shut down. You can look in the manual and see on Landis gear. So if you go out to test one in the field, you're going to have to open up your voltage just real quick, close them back in, just so it'll start emitting the pulses. But think about it, if you have a test board and you're testing them, you'd never notice that because you're powering them up when you stick them in the test board and you're hitting the power to them. Or if you come out there with your coupler and you're sitting there using your pad and you're sitting there putting it in test mode, that's okay. But if I'm just going out testing with a piece of equipment, I'm going to have to interrupt that and power it up so it'll start emitting the pulses for me, okay? All right. So it looks like we're connected up good. Looks like we've got everything in place. All we need is our pickup up there. So now that we've opened those up like he did, now we're going to get power and we're going to get our pulses rather out of here. Okay, cool.
Cool. So what's so funny about this is it's like I said, going back in time thing for me. So a lot of the stuff we're saying all the time now, this is the first times that we're mentioning them here. Like the turning of the alligator clips on the voltage so the return doesn't grab it and pull it off of there. The working and coining of the surfaces that we do with the, and you can see he does it with any of those alligator clips and even with the duck bills, working them a little bit. You want to work them some. Always neutrals and grounds on first. Same with the 3 series, always with the neutral on first. Always on with the neutral and grounds first, always off last with them. Give yourself a safe path in case something doesn't hit the right spot. You've given yourself a safe path. And also, I like on this one, noticing all the stuff that you can always already tell this is going to be a little bit of a crazy one. And we're going to run into some stuff here. So this would be a great one to stay tuned in on. We definitely found problems. You can already get a hint of what's coming. You know, it's not looking good up inside that can. We got some issues, so we're going to address those. But yeah, so as we're moving forward with this thing, we're going to definitely use more than one test on here to diagnose exactly what the problem is and find it out. So this is a really good one for learning parts of the process and testing you can use to bring to bear on a particular problem. So that's what we're going to do in this one. So thanks so much for tuning in. We're going to continue with this. We'll finish the 3 on this site. Then we're going to go to the introduction of the new product on the 14th. And then the 21st, by request, we're going to redo the load boost and the benchtop test. Okay, so that's what we got coming forward. Some good stuff. So hopefully you'll tune in. And thank y'all. And please be safe out there. God bless y'all. Appreciate it. Thanks. Have a great day.